The moment froze like a photograph, Amanda's manicured fingertips sliding glossy 8 by 10 photos across mahogany, while her lips curled into what anyone else might mistake for concern. My champagne flute slipped from my grasp, the crystal somehow remaining intact as it toppled onto its side, golden liquid bleeding across pristine white tablecloth toward the evidence of my supposed betrayal. The family dinner celebrating my husband Peter's promotion shattered into silence. "I didn't want to be the one to show you these," Amanda said, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy as she turned to my husband. "But while you've been working yourself to exhaustion, Olivia's been running around town with other men." The crystal chandelier above us seemed to pulse with each heartbeat as Peter's mother Vanessa audibly gasped, her hand flying dramatically to her throat. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, as Amanda placed her hand on Peter's shoulder, standing close enough that her expensive perfume must have clouded his senses. Rebecca, the junior associate from his firm, sat at his other side, carefully examining her plate. Amanda's eyes glittered with triumph as she delivered her final blow. "Now you don't have to feel guilty about Rebecca, and you definitely don't have to give Olivia anything in the divorce. My name is Olivia, I'm 32 and a former marketing director. This is the story of how I turned calculated betrayal into the most valuable lesson my husband's family would ever receive." The family I had devoted 8 years to gathered around those photos like vultures circling a carcass. Vanessa lifted one with trembling fingers, her voice breaking with rehearsed disappointment. "Olivia, how could you? We welcomed you into our family." Once her words would have cut deep. Now, I observed her performance with clinical detachment. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Amanda demanded, one hand propped on her hip, the other dramatically pointing at the evidence spread before everyone. I took a deliberately slow sip from my water glass, my eyes moving methodically across the faces surrounding me. Peter still wouldn't meet my gaze. His parents looked appropriately devastated, though I noticed his father, Harold, seemed more uncomfortable than angry. Amanda stood tall, her posture radiating righteousness. "Nice pictures," I said calmly. "The lighting is excellent. You must have paid your private investigator quite a lot." Amanda's triumphant smile faltered. This wasn't the tearful denial she had scripted for this moment. "That's all you have to say?" she snapped. "You're not even going to deny it?" I reached into my purse, feeling everyone tense, waiting for tears or perhaps a desperate confession. Instead, I placed my tablet on the table, its screen dark and reflective against the wood. "Why would I deny it?" My voice remained steady. "Those men are all divorce lawyers." The silence that followed was absolute. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked 3 times before anyone moved. "What?" Amanda stuttered, her composure cracking. I pointed to each photo methodically. "That's Ian Moore, the best family lawyer in the city. This is Frank Thompson. His firm specializes in cases involving infidelity. And this dinner? That's William Klein. He's particularly skilled at handling cases where people try to hide assets before a divorce." Amanda's face drained of color as though someone had pulled a plug. Peter suddenly found his water glass fascinating. The ice clinked against crystal as his hand trembled slightly. "You see," I continued, "when I discovered Peter and Rebecca 3 months ago, I decided to prepare properly." "You're lying," Amanda said. But uncertainty had replaced her confidence. I activated my tablet, displaying emails and signed agreements. The wonderful thing about legal consultations is that there's always documentation. I scrolled through the files deliberately, my finger leaving a smudge on the pristine screen. "But that's not even the most interesting part," I added, finally looking directly at Peter. "What do you mean?" Vanessa's voice trembled. "Well," I said, "during one of these meetings, I learned something fascinating about recent property transfers in this family. Lots of money and houses changing hands, new companies being formed." I let the implications settle over the room like a fine mist. Harold shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Peter frowned, turning to his father. "Dad, is that why you had me sign those papers last month? You said it was just routine family business." I watched realization dawn on his face. His family wasn't just helping him cheat. They were systematically hiding assets before the divorce. "Peter, sweetheart, we were just protecting you," Vanessa began. "Actually," I cut her off, "you were committing financial deception." I smiled thinly. "And my lawyers have documented everything." Amanda collapsed into a chair, the architect of her perfect trap suddenly finding herself snared. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew this whole time." I nodded, gathering my belongings. "Next time you hire a private investigator, make sure they're not working for both sides. Your PI was quite helpful once I noticed them following me and offered to pay double what you were paying." I stood, smoothing my dress. "Oh, and Peter, your lawyer will receive the paperwork tomorrow. You might want to read it carefully, especially the part about hiding assets." At the door, I turned back to Amanda. Thanks for the photos. They'll make excellent evidence. My heels struck the floor like a metronome as I walked out, each step punctuating my liberation. Only when I reached my car did I finally allow myself a small, private smile. They thought they had trapped me, but they had no idea what was coming. The next 2 weeks unleashed chaos. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Peter's family. Threats mingled with tearful pleas. Amanda cycled between rage and panic, her texts growing increasingly desperate. "You can't do this to us. We are family," her latest message read. That word, family, lingered in my mind. They hadn't treated me like family when they were planning to leave me with nothing. I archived her message without responding and focused on my preparations. 3 weeks after the dinner confrontation, Ian Moore's law office projected exactly the power it intended: gleaming wood, supple leather chairs, and an atmosphere of quiet authority. I reviewed documents in the conference room while waiting for the others to arrive. Right on schedule, Peter entered with his lawyer, followed by Vanessa and Harold. Amanda trailed behind, attempting confidence but failing visibly. "Mrs. Bennet," Ian greeted me with a professional nod. "Shall we begin?" I watched Peter's expression as Ian methodically presented our evidence. He paled noticeably when we displayed our timeline: every suspicious property transfer, every hastily created company, every deliberate attempt to hide money. Vanessa clutched his arm when Ian mentioned potential legal consequences. "This is nonsense," Peter's lawyer protested. "These were normal family business decisions." "Were they?" I asked, sliding forward a stack of documents. "Because these records show my name was removed from family business assets exactly 3 months ago, precisely when Peter began his affair. Quite a coincidence, don't you think?" Harold shifted uncomfortably. He had always been the weakest link, too concerned about his social standing to risk public scandal. "Now," Ian continued, "we are prepared to be reasonable. Mrs. Bennet helped build this family's success. She simply wants her fair share." "Fair share," Amanda snapped. "She's trying to ruin us." I turned to her, maintaining my composure. "No, Amanda, I'm protecting what I helped create." I paused. "Would you like me to play the recording of you and Peter discussing how to keep the gold digger from getting anything?" Her face went white. Peter's head snapped up. "You recorded us?" "No," I replied calmly. "Rebecca did. She was quite helpful once I showed her proof that you were planning to discard her too, once you'd secured your assets. I met with her 2 weeks after discovering your affair and showed her the text messages you'd accidentally sent to my phone instead of hers detailing your plans." The room erupted. Vanessa dissolved into tears. Harold demanded to speak with his personal lawyer. Amanda screamed about betrayal. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching my husband realize how thoroughly he'd been outplayed. "Here's what's going to happen," Ian spoke over the chaos, his voice commanding immediate silence. "We have documented evidence of attempted asset hiding. We can pursue this legally, or we can reach a reasonable settlement today. Your choice." Peter's lawyer requested a moment with his client. As they huddled in the corner, I could see the fight draining from Peter's body. He'd always been arrogant, convinced of his own cleverness, but now he looked hollowed out. "We'll agree to fair terms," his lawyer finally announced. "Excellent," Ian smiled. "Mrs. Bennet has already outlined her requirements." He distributed copies of my settlement proposal. I'd been thorough but not vindictive. I wanted what I'd helped build, nothing more. "This is outrageous," Vanessa exclaimed. But Harold placed a restraining hand on her arm. "Sign it, Peter," he said quietly. "We can't risk this getting out." As Peter picked up the pen, Amanda made one last desperate attempt. "Wait, those photos. They were in public places." She was flaunting these meetings. I couldn't help but laugh softly. "Of course they were public. I wanted you to see them. Every lunch, every coffee meeting, I knew you were having me followed. I just made sure your investigator captured exactly what I wanted you to see." The realization that they'd been played at their own game finally silenced them. One by one, the documents were signed. As Ian gathered the paperwork, I stood to leave. "Olivia," Peter called, his voice strange. "When did you get so calculating?" I paused at the door. "I learned from the best, didn't I? Family taught me." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. As I walked out of the office, I felt lighter than I had in months. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about showing them they underestimated you all along. Outside, the autumn air felt crisp and clean. My phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. "It's done. Thank you for showing me the truth about him. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? I'd like to talk more about what happened." I smiled, remembering how easily Peter's mistress had become my ally once I showed her proof of his pattern, his promises to her, his plans to discard her just like me after securing his wealth. I had reached out to her directly after finding incriminating text messages on Peter's phone when he left it unlocked one morning. Sometimes the strongest alliances come from unexpected places. Driving home, I thought about family, not the one that had betrayed me, but the one I would build for myself now, on my own terms. The divorce was finalized 4 months later, with all terms of our settlement enforced by the court. While Peter's family avoided any criminal charges for the asset transfers, they were forced to reverse all of them as part of our agreement, a humiliation they couldn't hide from their social circle. 6 months after the finalization of the divorce, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping coffee and watching the city awaken. Morning sunlight cast long shadows across my newly furnished living room, highlighting the fresh start I'd created. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca of all people. We'd maintained an unlikely friendship after everything, meeting monthly for coffee after she left Peter's firm for a better position. You won't believe who I just saw at Riverside Cafe. Amanda. She actually tried to pretend she didn't see me. I smiled, remembering how thoroughly the family had unraveled after our meeting. Their carefully constructed facade of perfect family business had cracked under the weight of their own schemes. Harold had retired early, claiming health issues, but everyone knew it was to avoid the whispers at his precious country club. Vanessa had thrown herself into charity work, desperately trying to maintain their social standing. Amanda perhaps had faced the harshest reality check. Her role in the attempted financial deception had cost her position in the family company. Last I'd heard, she was working as a junior accountant at a small firm, a significant step down from her former executive title. My phone rang. Ian Moore. Olivia, he greeted warmly. Just wanted to let you know the last of the transfers are complete. Everything's officially settled. Thank you, Ian, for everything. You know, he said thoughtfully, in all my years practicing law, I've never seen someone handle betrayal with such strategic precision. Have you ever considered a career change? I laughed, but his words resonated. In outmaneuvering Peter and his family, I'd discovered parts of myself I never knew existed: strength, cunning, and an ability to see several moves ahead. Later that afternoon, I met Natalie, my closest friend, for lunch at Marcello's downtown. She'd been my rock throughout everything, one of the few people who knew the whole story from the beginning. She was the one who had helped me pay for the initial lawyer consultations when I was still figuring out my next steps. Have you heard? She asked, sliding into her seat. Peter's been demoted. Apparently, some of his business decisions during the divorce drama didn't sit well with the board. I shook my head. I'm not surprised. He always did think he was smarter than everyone else. Speaking of smart, Natalie leaned forward. How's the new venture going? After the settlement, I'd used part of my funds to start a consulting firm, helping other women navigate complex divorces and financial disputes. It felt right, using my experience to help others protect themselves. We're expanding, I said, unable to hide my pride. Opened a second office last week. Look at you, Natalie grinned. From being blindsided by your husband's betrayal to running your own empire. Who would have thought? I reflected on the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, willing to believe in family loyalty above all else. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, but not bitter. If anything, I was grateful for the lessons learned. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Vanessa. I miss you. The family isn't the same without you. I archived it without responding. Some bridges once burned shouldn't be rebuilt. That evening, as I reviewed applications for my firm's mentorship program, I reflected on how life had changed. The family that had tried to destroy me had inadvertently set me free. Their attempts to leave me with nothing had pushed me to become something more than I'd ever imagined. The doorbell rang. Rebecca with a bottle of wine. Our monthly catch-up sessions had become a tradition of sorts ever since we'd first met for coffee after the settlement meeting 10 months ago. To Karma, she raised her glass, settling onto my couch. Peter's dating someone new, by the way. Poor girl has no idea what she's getting into. Should we warn her? I asked, half joking. Rebecca laughed. Something tells me she'll figure it out on her own. Besides, I hear she's quite clever with computers. Maybe she'll catch on faster than we did. We shared a knowing look. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward while watching karma do its work. As the sun set over the city, casting an orange glow through my windows, I felt at peace. The family that had tried to write me off as naive had taught me the most valuable lesson of all: never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. My new life wasn't built on revenge or bitterness. It was built on wisdom, strength, and the knowledge that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best beginnings. I raised my glass to the setting sun, silently thanking them for teaching me exactly who I could become. The story of how my husband's family tried to destroy me had become the catalyst for my greatest transformation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better.